Hello and welcome to the morning sports briefing here on Saturday, the 14th of November. And I hope you're having a great start to your weekend. Well, last night we had Mitre 10 Cup action between Counties and Southland, which we'll bring you up to date on. Also, the Trans-Tasman Super Rugby competition has been announced. We'll go through the details on that. We've had our first game cancelled in the Autumn Nations Cup due to COVID, unfortunately. And we also have news from the Turkish Grand Prix, the Masters, and we'll bring you up to date with what's happening or what is kicking off on the Plunket Shield. And we also have cycling news as well. So yes, over there in the Masters, and the second round is currently live at the moment. And we have two golfers at the top of the table currently. Dustin Johnson from America and Sungji Lim of Korea as well. Both are on 8 under par currently. But they are being closely pursued by a number of players who are still within 1 or 2 shots. So yes, it's definitely all in the balance still at the second round of the Masters over there in the USA. Unfortunately, there are no Kiwi golfers involved this time around, but I'll keep you up to date with how the tournament is going over the next couple of days. Moving on then to the cricket, and this weekend sees the last round of the Plunket Shield before it takes a break and then returns in March. Today there will be 3 games. The Central Stags will take on the Northern Districts down there in Nelson. The Otago Volts will play Canterbury in Alexandra, and the Wellington Firebirds will host the Auckland Aces at the Basin Reserve in Wellington. Those are all 4-day games, so do get along to those and watch some top-class cricket. Don't forget that soon we will be having the West Indies tour will be kicking off against New Zealand. International cricket is almost here, folks, which is great news. Over in the Turkish Grand Prix, and surprisingly, Mercedes are struggling there in practice with Max Verstappen of Red Bull topping the practice times, followed by Charles Leclerc of Ferrari. So yes, a bit surprising there to see the Mercedes off the pace, but being practice, who knows what kind of setup they were running, and we'll have to wait for qualifying to know the real speeds of the of those different cars over there in Turkey. Moving on to the rugby then, and unfortunately, due to COVID, the France versus Fiji game has been cancelled this time. As there is an outbreak within the visitors squad, it says. So unfortunately, the first game has to be cancelled has been cancelled. Tests that were received on Tuesday with 4 positive tests involving close contacts as well mean that the game has unfortunately had to be cancelled. Today, in just under an hour's time, Ireland versus Wales will be the first game of the Autumn Nations Cup before Scotland take on Italy and England take on Georgia overnight tonight, New Zealand time, that is. In the rugby and in the Mitre 10 Cup, Counties Manukau ended the hopes of Southland in of making the playoffs there in that one. It finished 25-17. It was only 7-0 at half time, but Counties had really dominated that first half and should have racked up a lot more points. Southampton's defence really keeping them in that game. But Counties were winning the ruck to turn over the ball, but unfortunately knocking it on far too many times, handing the ball back to Southland, even though they were counting Southland's half. Southland's scrum and line-out were really good, and that also helped them deny Counties a platform to attack. But in the end, all that possession was too much, and as I say, Counties came out victors 25-17 in that one. That ends Southland's hopes of making the playoffs. That means the Hawke's Bay, Otago, Taranaki, and Northland are all guaranteed to be in the finals for the championship. The only question now is what order will they finish in? We'll find that out over the next today and tomorrow. Today we have at 2 p.m. Northland versus Waikato. Stephen Harris for New Zealand Sport Radio will be at that game, so do keep an eye on our Facebook page for his coverage of that, and also the post-match interviews with players and coaches. At the same time, Wellington will take on Manawatu, and then at 4:35, Otago will play Tasman. This evening, the rugby, we have the third round of the Rugby Championship, where the All Blacks with their A team will be taking on the Argentina, and that kicks off at 7:10 New Zealand time. We'll be definitely watching that one and bringing you up to date with all those scores tomorrow here on the New Zealand Sports, here on the Morning Sports Briefing. Don't forget, you can also listen to us on the go. We put this out as a podcast every single morning. Just search for New Zealand Sports Radio on your favorite podcatcher, be that iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all of those wonderful places. Just subscribe on there. Super Rugby, the Trans-Tasman Super Rugby has been announced, and it is going to involve all 5 of the Super Rugby franchises in Australia playing home and away against the 5 Super Rugby franchises here in New Zealand. They just play, you don't play your own teams because you'll have played those during Super Rugby Aotearoa or Super Rugby AU. But Super Rugby Trans-Tasman will involve the 2 home games and 2 away games, plus a Super Saturday in round 3 at 1 location where they play all 3 games back to back. That is the setup, and then we're final between the top 2 sides at the end of the competition. So this is important for a number of reasons. It guarantees that each of the sides will get a minimum of 6 home games. And if you remember earlier this year, the Super Rugby teams said that they needed between a minimum of 6, but preferably 8 home games to have a viable season for them financially. So we are reaching that threshold, which is good. This is seen as just being a precursor to 2022, when it will be expanded to be a minimum of a 12-team competition with Super Rugby, with the Fijian side and a Pacifica side. Manu Pacifica having that game against the Maori All Blacks would look like being favourites to pick up that Pacifica side playing in Mount Smart. But we will have to wait for an announcement on that. New Zealand Rugby did say that up to 3 teams could be added in 2022. Kanaloa Pacifica have apparently already started legal action against New Zealand Rugby over their Super Rugby bid snub. So we'll have to see if anything comes of that one, and we'll see what situation there. 2 other sides that are also involved have also submitted bids include the Asia Dragons, who are based out of Singapore. Normally, they recently took part in the new TENS competition that was held over in Bermuda, and also China Lions, who are a team between Bay of Plenty and China Rugby for that one. And that's now brings you up to speed with all of the important sports news. Don't forget also that's on Sunday, we have the women's Premiership football here in New Zealand, so get along to that. But also the Vantage Criterium National Championships will be taking place in Wellington. I think it is. Is it Wellington? Sorry, in Christchurch this weekend in Christchurch, and that will take place say on the 15th of November. So look out for that. We'll bring you more news on that tomorrow morning ahead of the race. Taking part there down there with 10 world champions in that one. Mainly all of them off the track. So putting them in a different situation on the road for racing, but a lot of the riders from the Tour of Southland will be now. You'll recognize a lot of those faces or names in this race as well. So you have now started the day the best way, up to speed with all of the important sports news. I'm going to head over to catch up or watch that Ireland versus Wales game. You'll find me tweeting about that at Driving Maul on Twitter. So if you want to join me to watch that game, that kicks off at 8 a.m. New Zealand time. Hope you all have a wonderful start to your week and catch you tomorrow morning with the morning sports briefing at 7 a.m.